So first things first, like we're just talking about Tyrese, who was in his fourth year, and we're seeing players, young players, like really make an impact and lift their teams.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think Cade is amazing. I still think he's incredibly talented. It's obviously former number one pick. Like explain why Cade isn't doing that. Why isn't as good as he is? Why is he not saying, "All right, I'm gonna at least get us to a team flirt with 500," right? Like
Yeah, I
explain
think
that part.
so. I think that's a great question. So I think one thing I want to point out is we all heard all the rumors out of USA basketball that Cade was one of the two best players there,
Cooking.
which
Yes.
involved Tyrese Halliburton. So obviously, playing with other good players, Cade is able to kind of get his shit off, right? So there's that. Two, I think people who there's outside, I don't know how many people. Detroit has a lot of fans, but I don't know how many people that aren't Pistons fans don't pay attention. This is basically Cade's second season. He only played 12 games last year. He was playing on one leg, basically. So now he's coming back. There's that part of it. There's two. The Pistons needed to learn, is this guy a lead guard? And he struggled with turnovers since coming back. Like he's still, I think he's been a lot better the last few games, but I think he still leads the league in turnovers. So now they're using him more off ball. They're playing him with Killian, with Jaden Ivey, taking that pressure off of him. And I think just the big thing with Cade is like, you guys know because you guys know ball, but like there's this perception that number one picks or whatever are supposed to come in like ready to go. And it's like, man, people take time. Like nobody's talking about that. Everybody was saying Wemby's our team savior. I think the Spurs still on a 14-game losing streak or something like that too. Like it takes time for some of these guys. And I think for Cade, it's like he's just figuring out what he can do. And listen, he's not like perfect. He's not the most athletic guy. He struggles around the rim. But I think playing with space is going to be helpful to him, and getting Bojan back is going to be huge. Playing alongside Ivy is going to be huge. I think you look at his last 3 games where they've played 2 or 3 three guards. He's only had 1 turnover and he's putting up like 30 points. Like you're starting to see the process. And I just think at the end of the day, Tyrese Halliburton has a Buddy Hield, a Miles Turner, a Bruce Brown, Shea's played more seasons and he's propelled himself into MVP category last year. Like Cade's playing with guys that just he's got to like they're figuring out what Killian Hayes is, they're figuring out what Jaden Ivey is, Jalen Duren. Like these guys are young, and acts to do a lot. So listen, there's no really excuse for 2-18, and they shouldn't have one. But I think for Cade, like people that are like writing him off, I just think it's like disingenuous because the situation is unique and his personal situation. Like the guy, this is his second season. Like not everybody's comes into the league like LeBron, and I think that's the biggest misconception.
I'm going to go ahead and plug one of your pieces that you did on Cade Cunningham's shot, which I really like. I appreciate being able to learn about how people get their shots back after injury.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't experience, career-ending injury or anything like that, but I've just knowing the work that goes in, talking about him practicing for 2 days while sitting and then, or 1 day for sitting and then 2 days while standing and off one leg and having to build his quad. You guys go read that. It's very, very interesting to learn the mechanics of how somebody like Cade can get a shot back. But I'm also curious about the people around him, because Marcus Sasser is supposed to be a person that's supposed to spread the floor. Isaiah Livers is supposed to be someone that's supposed to spread the floor. And I'm curious if you think that their shot production is a result of just a mental thing because they're not in a good space right now, or is it more of an offensive scheme that they're not being set up for like great catch and shoot shots or being able to create for themselves and find their open, their opportunities?
No, that's a great question. And I think to some people early on, it looks like what you're saying, like the scheme itself is not setting itself up to 3-point shooting. But what I will say is, because again, I don't expect people to pay attention closely, like it's super close to where I'm going to say this. The Pistons came into the year with 5 legitimate floor spacers: Alec Burks, Joe Harris, Monte Morris, Bojan Bogdanovic, and Isaiah Livers. Isaiah Livers just made his debut last week. Right. Bojan just made his debut 2 days ago. Monte Morris hasn't played all year. Alec Burks has missed 9 games, and Joe Harris has missed the last 2 weeks with a shoulder sprain. So it's like why I think, especially early on, you watched the Miami game, why I think they emphasized defense so much and it hurt the offense is because if they had a chance, they had no choice because they just had no floor spacing, right? Like their best shooter available for most of the year is Isaiah Stewart, who's just like shooting volume threes for the first time in his life, and teams still really don't respect it. Jaden Ivey's is a streaky shooter, but can shoot it. So it's like, I know Pistons fans are listening to this, like, shut up about the injuries and excuses, but it's like, man, like this team has 5 guys missed the majority of the year that are all career 38% 3-point shooters or better. Like they can't be ignored.
Yeah.
Especially when you factor in that everybody else around them was asked to do this.
We sure can ignore it if it's not in the in-season tournament. We can definitely.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, those shots would have went in if they played in the in-season tournament.
If you paint the floor different, they would get buckets. I'm trying to tell you.
We would have seen a different Pistons
a little bit more.
They would have cared.
Here's what concerns me, right? Especially watching like Cade, because I agree with you on Cade. And the narrative can also be so tied to results, right?
Yeah.
Where it feels like he's failing because his team is failing. When if you watch him play, like the dude is good, right? But if you watch him play, you also start feeling sorry for Cade. Like, yo, like this is pretty sad.